Hello. I won't stay this orange for long. It writes itself eventually. It focuses. Just takes a minute. There it is. All right, so I am back to talk about BB23 and this season, you know, you can't say it's boring. It's just like people are already starting to hate each other in that house and people are already starting to sink their own games. And it's messy, but I kind of love it. It's what I was talking about last night. It's like I love the mess. I just love it. But I will say there was one person that I was hoping would not make a mess for a much longer while, and of course I am talking about Azza. I mean, she in the last not even 36 hours, she has said pretty much all the wrong things. I mean, she is showing that she does not have a lot of game sense. Okay, I mean, she was a favorite early on, and she still has a lot of love. She still has a lot of support. Some people are still on her side, and I'm not against her per se. I just feel like she's been getting a little too emotional starting Friday evening, or I guess Friday afternoon. But sometimes I forget that I'm on the East Coast. I'm 3 hours ahead of them. It was the evening for me, but I think it was still mid late afternoon for them technically. I don't know. Evening is just sort of a general term. Nobody can really agree on when it starts. I don't know. I'm going off on a tangent here, but here's what Oz has been saying that has been disappointing me about her gameplay. She was asking why in the wild card competition Tiffany didn't take out Derek X. Like I still haven't seen it. We haven't seen the competition yet. We'll see it tomorrow. But apparently, the gist of it is that it went in such a way that Tiffany and Derek X were able to gang up on Brittany to take her out of the running, and then Derek X essentially threw it to Tiffany. And it's like Ozza just couldn't figure out why. And I'm just like, there's a bigger plan here. And I don't want to say it's her fault for being left out of the loop, but then again, it kind of is because Ozza does not do a lot of game talk outside of her alliance. Oh yeah, and another thing I wrote, she knew that Derek X was throwing the competition. So yeah, Tiffany would want to take out the person who's going for it first. That's strategy. That's the way the game goes. And that's why Ozza's mad at Tiffany now calling her fake. I'm like, really? This is Big Brother. That's the way that kind of thing's supposed to go, you know? And Ozza also refused to believe that Derek X and Hannah threw the HOH competition, even though we clearly saw them throw it. They celebrated when they got it wrong. You don't do that unless you're throwing it. They just wanted to outlast Brent and Whitney in the competition, and then Hannah mouthed the correct answer. She said it was false, but then she and Derek X both put true, and then they were wrong, and then they're just like, yeah, and yeah, they just celebrated. I mean, I get Ozza couldn't see it, but it's just the fact that Ozza's not listening to anybody right now. She doesn't I don't know. It's just in general, it seems like Ozza doesn't really get that other people are allowed to work together beyond their teams. And she should understand that because she's in the cookout. She's in one of the like female alliances. There's several. There's a lot of crossover between them, but I'm pretty sure Oz is in one or two of them. Plus, she was in French Kisses, and she was the one that came up with the name, even though she knew that whole alliance was bullcrap. But I'm like, Ozza, why aren't you getting out there and making more connections with people? Like, she only really talks game with her teammates on the Jokers, Derek F and Brittany, and all three of them are really like that. Like, they have made the least amount of connections in the house. I said this before, and it's like, are you kidding me? Did being did having Frenchie as the team captain rub off on you? Because you're just not making a lot of sense with what you're doing. They're literally closing themselves off from the rest of the house, and they're annoyed that they're not in the loop. Like, what did you expect? Now, you compare it to the Aces, specifically Whitney, Derek X, and Hannah. They are in agreement. Brent has to go, and they are in agreement with it, and they have gone beyond their group to try and bring people together, and it has worked. They've gotten Xavier to target Brent, and like the people in the Aces minus Brent are like playing a pretty strategic game right now. They're doing Big Brother the way it's meant to be done. Okay, and I don't understand why the Jokers, the remaining Jokers, are having such a hard time going beyond this team thing. Like, it's only supposed to last the first 4 weeks. This is week 3, so you got to start preparing yourself to branch out and make more connections. Otherwise, they're just going to be picked off first. I mean, at this point, I'm pretty certain that the Jokers are going to be the first team to be completely eliminated from the house. That's what it's looking like to me. And, Brittany and Derek F, I don't really care too much. But Ozza, like, she's letting me down big time. I didn't expect it from her. But I mean, she's mad at Tiffany now. Like, I thought these two were gonna be like ride or die all the way to the end. I thought they were gonna have a final two with each other. But at this point, the only member of the cookout that Ozza really seems to trust is Derek F. And like he is the one person on the team she shouldn't trust. Because he is proving to be really sort of a drain, like energy wise, in the Big Brother house. But yeah, she's mad at Tiffany. She doesn't really seem to acknowledge Hannah as part of the slaughter. I mean, part of the cookout. Sorry, there's so many alliances. Sometimes you get a little confused with each other. She's been kind of annoyed by Kyland lately, and she's confused at why Xavier would put someone from her team up. And I'm like, because he. Look, it's the same reason I thought Brittany was going to go up when Kyland was HOH. She didn't have much of a connection, much of a relationship with Kyland, and she doesn't have much of one with Xavier. So, you know, in Big Brother, you have to make these kinds of connections so that you don't get targeted, and Brittany really has not done that. Sorry, but it's true. So yeah, Azza, Azza's letting me down. I hope she can turn it around and you know she can take the better shots in the game. But right now, she's definitely moving down my rankings. I did the Big Brother Daily polls, like BB Daily, Big Brother Daily. They do a poll every day, like rank all the house guests. And today I put Azza the lowest I've ever put her. I put her at number 8. Yeah. Tiffany's still my number 1. She's still my favorite. Number 2 was Derek X for me, and I put Hannah at number 3 because I don't really root for showmances too much, but Derek X and Hannah is one that I really want to see happen. I would love it. Uh, Claire, she had a moment where she like looked in the camera. She was alone, and she was just basically talking to America. And here's what she said. She said that she wants Brent and Whitney out, and I'm like, beautiful. That sounds good to me. Claire wins the next HOH. I think Whitney will go, and I won't be too sad about that. Um, she wants to work with Hannah and Brittany. Hannah, I'm definitely all for, but Brittany, I think she's a little too over emotional. And Claire also says she wants to work with Azza, but Claire herself says that Azza isn't doing great right now, like just game wise. She's kind of having a moment. She doesn't fully trust Kyland. That surprised me a little because they're teammates, but she did acknowledge, or at least she thinks, that he's playing the best game in the house. I'm like, okay, that's that's interesting. Um, she likes Tiffany, but she thinks that she would lose to Tiffany in the final two, and a lot of people have been suspecting that. And to be honest, I could see that happening to her. Sorry, I'm trying not to scratch my nose on camera, but every time I stream, it just gets itchy. It's definitely in my head at this point because it happens every time. Um, but yeah, Claire also said that she wants to keep playing just kind of a ditzy role, so that she's not looked at as too much of a threat. But she did solve that first puzzle and became a team captain. So people should know that like she's got something going on upstairs, and she's worried that she's at the bottom of the alliance that she's in, which I think the one she's referring to is the one she's in with her fellow queens, the Kings, and Derek X. I think that's the one in question. And she says that she thinks that you know, Tiffany's been known to make some jokes in the house, and some of them have been pretty good. She thinks that and her temper will be her downfall. Now, I haven't really seen Tiffany have a bad temper yet. I mean, she seems pretty irritated with Azza lately, but I don't think she's mad at her. I think she's just frustrated that Azza isn't like seeing the bigger picture, which is valid because I'm frustrated that Azza's not seeing the bigger picture. But yeah, that's what Claire thinks about Tiffany. I think I'd be more worried about the joke parts because I remember like uh, she was Alyssa said something about her boobs, and Tiffany was like, "You don't even have no boobs," and that was pretty funny. I mean, everyone laughed, but maybe one day she'll tell a joke that won't go over well. Listen, I've said before, I'm an aspiring comedian. Sometimes the jokes don't always go over with the audience, and you find yourself in trouble. But I think Tiffany. I mean, Tiffany now has a win. Plus, she's been playing a really good social game. I think that now might be the time when people start looking at Tiffany as a potential threat because they're seeing that she can win stuff. She does know what she's doing. She has a good social game. And I think Tiffany will go far, but some people have compared her to Vanessa from BB17, and Vanessa came in third, even though a lot of people still feel she was the best player that season. But you know, she didn't win that final HOH, so Steve did. He had to take the shot, and taking that shot is probably what gave Steve the win. I mean, pretty much all those jurors said that they would have voted for Vanessa in the final. So if Tiffany makes it to the final three, but she doesn't win that final HOH, then whoever the final HOH is, like if they took her out, that would be like slaying the dragon, and you get some points for that, and the jury's gonna look positively on that, even if maybe the person that you took the shot on doesn't vote for you in the end. Like Vanessa didn't vote for Steve in the end. I thought she would, believe it or not, but guess not. She didn't. He didn't need her. He still won 6-3. Yeah, but maybe if Liz had won the money, maybe her and Julia wouldn't be on OnlyFans doing some some stuff. That was uh that was not something I wanted to find out. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then don't look it up. Just trust me, it was not right. Liz and Julia, the twins, they just no, just no. So Brent, he was not worried about not winning the veto or winning it. Like he didn't care. He's like, I got the votes. This guy is way too confident. He's been confident his whole life, and he doesn't realize that he's in an environment now where people aren't going to appreciate his ego, his attitude, and like I'm just getting such sadistic glee out of it. I hate to say it, but I really am. I mean, this dude, he is just so confident. He swears he has the votes. He swears he's gonna stay, and yet he still knows Xavier is his like he is Xavier's target, but he's still just so confident that he's got the votes to stay. But no, he doesn't. And Whitney was picked for the veto, Brent's teammate, Brent's team captain, actually. And she straight up said, if I win the veto, I'm not going to use it. And she said that she didn't care what Brent would think if she didn't save him. And Xavier suggested that she throw it to either himself or Christian, who was also picked. Like he said, try to throw it to one of us if you can, and she's like, yeah, I'll try to do that. I guess maybe she was trying to avoid getting that kind of blood on her hands, but that would have been funny if she won the veto. She was the number one person I wanted to see win the veto because it was like that would just hammer it home to Brent. Like when his own team captain doesn't save him when she wins the veto and he's nominated, that would just really be a big dawning moment for him that he's basically alone in the house and he doesn't realize it because he's just such a narcissist. And like the way he keeps talking to Xavier, or was talking to Xavier earlier, he's just like, and last night also, or Friday night, because it's Sunday for me now. Dang it, hiccups. Yeah, it's another thing that always happens when I'm streaming. I get the hiccups. So yeah, Brent's saying to Xavier, like, we had something and now you're just destroying it. You're throwing it away. And then Brent brings up to Xavier their alliance, the Radicals, which is between the Kings, Xavier's alliance, and the Aces, Brent's alliance. And none of them took it seriously. Like, none of them did. And they took it so not seriously that today was the first time I heard about it. I had never heard the Radicals mentioned. I hadn't seen any recappers acknowledge it. Like, it was nothing. It never came up. And, like, I had to dig, like, did anyone know about this? And finally, I did find some people who were like, yeah, it happened, but, like, no one really agreed to it. And, that's just fantastic because that's three people on the Aces that will be voting on eviction night, and three people on the Kings that will be voting on eviction night that are all gonna vote him out. Like right there, boom, six. Of course, Derek F and Ozza, they're not gonna vote Brittany out. Uh, the Queens, I don't see why they would. I don't see any reason for them to keep Brent. So, yeah, it was looking like if he doesn't win the veto, he's possibly facing a unanimous eviction. And and Brittany, let's get back to Brittany. Like she is still so mad that she's nominated, and it's like you know this game, right? You know that this is a possibility that can happen at any time. And I'm just like, if you don't like it, do something about it and win something. And she basically hints that like, I'll just go after Kylan and Xavier now. Like they both put me up, so I'll put them up. And look, that's fair play. She wins HOH, and she puts up the two guys that nominated her. Fine, that is a perfectly fair move. It's just like, you know, it's just the fact that she's so shocked that it happened. I'm like, you didn't make relationships with either of them, okay? You have to take some accountability here. I'm sorry, but you do. And she also says that she could possibly go after Christian and Alyssa to hurt Xavier. And I'm like, well, if you're gonna do that, then why not just go after Xavier? Like, okay, put up Kylan and Xavier, and then if one of them wins the veto or has the veto used on them, then put up Christian or Alyssa. You know? Mm. All right, so back to Brent now. I'm going in the order that I wrote them in my phone. Um, Brent says to Hannah, like they're talking about why Ozza wasn't nominated, and Brent says that Xavier didn't nominate Ozza because she's black. And listen, black people on Big Brother historically have had a hard time because there haven't been too many of them at once. Last season there were four, and they all had trouble getting along. Davon and Bailey, they got along fine, but like Davon's relationship with Kevin and David was like she did not want to work with them. She did not care for them at all, but she felt that she had to, and like she saw the value in keeping them in the game, which is why when she won the veto, the only Big Brother win she's ever gotten. Well, that and America's favorite player. But she was like, "Yeah, I'm going to use the veto and save Kevin." But now, like, she doesn't talk to either of them anymore. So, yeah, that was like last season. Even though the people of color were targeted every week until they were all gone, basically, or were nominated at least. Like, like that. I forget how I was wording that sentence, and I lost my train of thought. Let me just start over. Like last season was like it had the most black people, and like it had a decent number of people of color, but like they just couldn't get their foot in the door because a bunch of white people got together and just decided to run the house, and all seven of them just traded off HOHs. So like it was just a case of they can't do anything because you won't let them. But this year, like there's actually more. It's 50% people of color, and yeah, the black people have decided to team up because they've watched Big Brother. They know that they have a hard time, historically speaking. So yeah, Brent. That may be why he didn't nominate her, but that's a pretty darn good reason because historically, the people of color have been targeted fast, and that's why the cookout formed. So yeah, Brent saying that was pretty narrow-minded, and he said this to Hannah also, and Hannah is half black. She's half black, half Indian, and he's just saying this to her like it's nothing. And Hannah goes and talks to Xavier about it, and Xavier's like, he shouldn't have said that. He shouldn't like be going down that path. But he still feels like he's not a bad guy. And then Hannah brings up a good point. She's like, she doesn't like how that's always a response when someone says some racist stuff. Everyone just comes out like, oh, but they're a good person though, because that does always happen. Like that happens in real life, happens all the time, and like you know, you say something racist, you apologize for it, you learn from it, like you gain a new perspective from that kind of response that you typically get. Like if you have enough of a platform and you try to learn from it, that's the way to deal with it. But we live in a world where that is never how it's dealt with. Like it probably comes down to the fact that like a lot of people are enabled by it because like they say it and then people are like, well, they're a good person though. Like they're not a bad person. And then Hannah even goes further, like that's always the case. Like if someone murders people and it's like, oh, but he was a good person though. And it's like, I'm not saying that. Okay, look, racism is bad, but murder is still worse. I feel like you can unlearn racism. Like you can learn how to not be racist. But you murder people, then that's kind of the like you don't come back from that. I'm sorry, you just don't. But yeah, I thought that was a pretty interesting discussion that they had, and I appreciate Xavier trying to be like, well, I still don't think he's a bad person for it, but Xavier was like, he definitely had a look of he better stop though, like that better not continue. I better not hear about him saying that again. At least that was the vibe I got. Like he didn't seem impressed by that statement. So we had the veto today. The veto players obviously were Xavier, Brent, Brittany, and the people who were drawn, like I said, were Whitney, Christian, and Derek F. And I'm thinking Whitney has a pretty good shot to win this, but also I feel Brent has a pretty good shot to win this. I was just like, Whitney would be the best case scenario because then we get to see Brent feel the full betrayal. But Christian and Xavier winning was like the next best thing because they would secure it. And Brittany winning wouldn't be ideal, but it would calm her down. Just and Derek F. Like the, no one is looking at him as a comp beast. Okay, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, he was out in the first round on the last HOH, which was the true or false quiz. Like he's not much of a competitor or anything. He definitely didn't last long in that game. Even if he wasn't first round, he didn't last long. So the veto competition happens, and like apparently, like just judging from all the tutus they're wearing, it seems like they have to do the bowling thing, like bowl arena, which is the one that like involves spinning around a lot. And it turns out that Christian won the veto, and I'm like, okay, that's good because he will definitely keep the noms the same. But then some other people pointed out that like Xavier not winning this was probably pretty good for him because then this is now Christian now has 3 wins because he won the first challenge and became a team captain. He won the first wild card comp and now he's won a veto. So, Christian is making himself a little bit more of a threat in the game, and that keeps the eye off Xavier, and also keeps the eye off Derek X, who himself has 2 vetoes. So, yeah, that's how the that's how the veto went. Christian got it for himself, and Brittany, she's still not doing well. I mean, she was happy for Christian. Like, I saw footage of her. Well, I saw a GIF of her hugging him in the storage room. But I'm just wondering if she thinks he's going to use it on her because he's not. I hope that like from what I heard, they really targeted Brent pretty hard in that competition, and they tried to get him out. So maybe, possibly, Brittany has started to see that there is, in fact, a plan to to get Brent out, and she is not the target. But honestly, I feel like because she has been pretty irrational lately, and I feel like she is under the impression that Christian is going to use the veto on her. And what further gave credence to this was she was talking to Ozza and says that she's gonna go right up to Xavier and she's just gonna say put someone else up on the block. Like, first of all, you got to be talking to Christian. He has the veto. Xavier does not. Like you got to convince Christian to use it first. Okay, and like just the way she's like what she's saying, she's just like being so forceful and aggressive about it. She's like it's almost like she's gonna demand that he do it and demand he apologize for what he said in his uh, nomination speech, which like was part of the ruse to make it look like she's the target when it's actually Brent, which didn't really seem to work because Brent suspects he's a target anyway. But it's just like she's making demands like she has any power. She doesn't. She doesn't have a single win to her name, even. And it's like, you need to really take it down a notch because if she pushes back too hard, like if she gets too angry about it, too aggressive about it, Xavier is gonna be like, you know what? I think I want you to be the target now. If she pushes too hard, then she's just gonna push herself out the door. Okay? She's just playing it so badly lately. Like the the thing about Big Brother is like it's gonna be emotional. You're not gonna like everything that happens to you, but you gotta work through it, and you gotta find the way to keep yourself in the game. And the easiest way for Brittany to keep herself in the game is to calm down. Just not even say a word to anybody this week. But uh, I did say this on Twitter earlier that I do know that Brittany is on the spectrum, like me, and I've been there where I'm in a situation where just putting my head down, being calm, and just dealing with it, just getting through it is like the ideal scenario to just get the situation over with. But instead, like you can't, and you're just really emotional, and your emotions make the situation worse. Like I've been there, so I don't say this lightly when I say that uh, Brittany is on my last nerve. Okay, like I have tried to be sympathetic to her, but she really is playing pretty badly. And I don't know if I'd be any different if I was in there. I feel like if I found myself in her position, I can't say with all honesty that I wouldn't be as angry as she is. But I know myself enough. I'm self-aware enough to know that I would have thought about that going in. I would have been like, "Are you ready for this? Like, can you handle if this happens to you?" And I would have had to really think about that. And to be honest, I don't know if I would have or wouldn't have gone through with being on the show in that situation after that thought process. So yeah, I just feel like Brittany should have been a little more aware that, like the name of the stream says, Big Brother is a pressure cooker of emotion. So, Sarah Beth, haven't mentioned her yet. Haven't really seen her much. Like she hasn't really been mentioned in too many updates. She was kind of laying low, which I like. She got herself a win already. She's shown that she's in the game. Now, Sarah Beth was the first one to suggest targeting Derek F. And I'm like, okay. Everyone's just over him. I mean, outside the house. He's still pretty beloved in the house. He's still got a good social game with everybody. Nobody really wants to target him or wanted to target him before Sarah Beth said it. But she didn't say to do it right away. She said that he'd be a good target on a double eviction. And I actually agree with that because, the guy, he's not much of a competitor. He would be a pretty safe target. And, I go on and on about how you can't play too safe, how it's boring, but sometimes like you just you just got to do what you got to do. Excuse me. And I think what they got to do is put Derek F up on a double eviction because that might just be the I think that would be the best time to take him out. As for Sarah Beth's teammates, the Kings, well, Christian and Alyssa mostly, but they said that they first want to target Whitney and Hannah. They did think about Brittany, but then they're like, maybe not her. Like Whitney and Hannah would be their first two, and I'm like, well, Whitney, I don't mind because I still have some opinions on Whitney, but Hannah, no, don't you dare. I swear, if Hannah and Derek X are separated by jury, like only one of them makes it to jury, that will be devastating. You know, there have been Big Brother couples that deserved to be separated by the jury stage that were. Like, just watch BB17, Shelly and Clay. That was the fate that befell them. Clay was the last pre-juror, and then Shelly was the first juror. So she didn't even get to play the game very long without him. So that was just kind of mean, but I loved it. And also, I know this is a hot take, but I'm glad that Cody and Jessica got separated by jury because honestly, I still hate both of them. I think they're both just very unlikable people to this day. And I still see people that are like, we're still rooting for them though. We're still happy they're together. I'm like, just stop. Especially Cody. Cody was my least favorite person on BB19. Yeah, I said it. I said it. He's a miserable transphobe. So, I was happy to see them. He made it to jury and she didn't. And, haha, screw you. But they made it work. They're still together to this day. They have kids. And it's like, whatever. But anyway, going back to this season, um, I don't want to see Derek X and Hannah broken up like that. I don't want only one of them to make it to jury. And also, I don't want neither of them to make it to jury because that would just be disappointing because they're both really good players. But I would rather they both go pre-jury than only one makes it to jury because at least then they can still be together. They can still possibly become an item. So, yeah, that's uh that's all the notes I took. So now it's time to catch up on what's happened since I've been talking. Just checking my notifications real quick. All right, well, nothing on my timeline. Nothing Big Brother related on my timeline. So let's hit up BB updates. Wow, there have been no updates since I last checked. Okay, well, time to check the hashtag. Derek F told Brittany not to do another rap. Oh, right. Okay. So Brent said to Hannah, I'm just reading just what it says here. When you're involved with a male, is PDA something you just don't do because you're closed off? Like, do you even touch anyone? Your arms are always crossed. That shows you don't want anyone to come near. Dude, you are like women don't exist just for men to be all up on them. Okay? And I can't stand guys like Brent. I can't. They're the worst. They make us all look bad. Like I sit here trying to say I'm a good person. Like I'm a good guy. I don't treat women badly. And I do believe in my heart of hearts that I am a kind and respectful person to women. But then this guy just still drags me down. And the worst part is that he is way better looking than I am. He has had way more success with women than I have. And he's going to continue to, even though he's on not even just national TV, but the internet, the World Wide Web, on live streams, saying this kind of stuff. Like, this is the millionth thing he has said that's like that. I mean, he is the pinnacle of, like, you'd be a lot prettier if you smiled more. Like, what do you care? And, like, Hannah went to Derek X to like tell him about it while he was in the shower. So that was kind of that was kind of an interesting moment. And I'm glad that Hannah isn't standing for it. Like I hope that Brent encounters more women in his life like Hannah, because at this point it's looking like he's next. Okay, the odds of Christian using the veto on him are almost zero. So, like, I hope that when Brent gets out, the women he encounters in his life are more like Hannah. That way, if he encounters a few more women like her, maybe he'll start to change his ways a little bit. But I doubt it. Now, this guy is gonna find a bunch of women that have never seen Big Brother, but they're just like, "Oh, you were on TV? That's cool," and that's all they need. Like, this guy is gonna be fine with women in his life. Like, I'm not even gonna say like, now the whole world's seeing what he's really like. Like, no, they're seeing that he's on TV, and that's all they're gonna see. That's all they want to see. Even if I was on Big Brother and I was a perfect gentleman to all the ladies in the house, I still would not walk out of that house and go on to have as much success with women as Brent is going to have. Okay? Which is not fair. What can I say? His looks are going to continue to serve him well. Oh, yeah. So apparently the feeds have been on um, Christian and Alyssa for a while, and nobody's interested. Maybe that's why the page hasn't updated, because the feeds are still on them. Yeah, Christian Alyssa is like an official thing now. Chrysalis, but you know, I would not be heartbroken to see um that showman's broken up by jury. Do I want them to both go pre-jury? No, because Brent's next, and yay. But I would probably next want Whitney or Brittany to go. Whitney because I still just can't get past some of the things she said and some of the things she believes. And then Brittany is just proving to be too much of an emotional liability, just like Frenchie was. Frenchie has rubbed off on his team in one way or another, and it's unfortunate. Like, I really think that Brittany, Ozza, and Derek F would all be way better players if they were on better teams. And, like, on the flip side of that, if anyone else in that house was unfortunate enough to end up on on Frenchie's team, then they wouldn't be doing as well. Because I'd say everybody else is doing better socially, except for maybe Brent, than the remaining members of the Jokers. Frenchie just had a very bad influence on them. But yes, that's that's what's going on today. Uh, we got a we got a live episode tomorrow, and by tomorrow I mean later today because it's officially Sunday now. It's actually 12:59 a.m. on Sunday. So yeah, later today we have a new episode. But yeah, that will do it for me. Thanks to my one viewer for watching, and thanks to anyone who watches this on YouTube. Uh, I will see you next time.